You are tuned to the Paracasual Destiny Podcast, episode 38. Well, hello everybody. It seems like it's been ages since we've done one of these. How's everybody holding up?
Not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad. It's been a whirlwind of a summer, that's for sure.
Yeah, when was our last podcast? Like a month ago, right?
4 weeks.
Yeah.
We were going to skip one anyway because Sallybug and I were planning on a trip to see you guys in Texas, and that got postponed due to a sick animal. Our kitty got ill, and so we had to take care of her instead. There's a lot of real life stuff going on in addition to that, and so we had to kind of postpone our last one or two broadcasts until today, but it's good to be back. It's good to be back doing this. So a lot has happened leading up to the epilogue in season 15 since we last spoke. But before we get into that, I just wanted to introduce everybody. I'm Soul Time. And I'm here with Sallybug. Sallybug, are you there?
I'm here.
I see you. And, I see your avatar. And Romance Girl. How's it going, Romance?
Hello.
Hi.
Pretty
and
good.
the now infamous Green Stego. Green Stego?
Greetings. Greetings, Guardians.
Greetings, Earthlings. All right. So yeah, a lot has transpired since we last did one of these. I believe we were in the midst of the Solstice of Heroes last time we were on the air. Is that correct?
Sounds right.
Sounds about right, yep.
How'd everybody finish up with that?
I don't know if I got all the triumphs, because I know I didn't, because I didn't get on my alt characters at all. So, but thanks to them taking trials out of the mix for getting, I was able to get like the regular glow on all pieces of armor for my main character, my hunter.
Just a regular glow.
Well, yeah, I contemplated buying the colored glows, the ones that correspond with your subclass, and I just couldn't pull the trigger because it was like 6,000 bright dust, and it's like, that's gonna like deplete me, and then something else is gonna come along that I'm gonna wish I had the bright dust for. So
like a sparrow with purple exhaust.
And the other thing is that I like, my memory of it is that I did that with the last year's Solstice of Heroes, and so I had that glow on those pieces of armor if I really, really wanted that kind of glow. And the memory that serves me is that after like the first 2 or 3 weeks of it, I just stopped using it anyway. So it's like,
Yeah.
I think I'll pass. Anyway, that's me.
So yeah, I got all 3 sets for each of my characters, my Warlock, my Hunter, and my Titan. I was very proud of that accomplishment, being able to do
That's
that
awesome.
on the 3 of them. I worked efficiently. I kind of wanted to do it because they had removed the trials element from getting all of those things done. And, it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a good Solstice of Heroes, honestly.
And the alt characters really didn't take that much, right? If I remember right.
No, they
from
give
what
you a break.
said.
It compounds the requirements. You get a really big cut in what is required as you progress through your other characters. You get those boons, those boosts. So yeah, it went really quick. Once I had 2 characters done, it went very quick for the 3rd one. So it was great.
I I had a thought regarding Solstice of Heroes.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking that wouldn't it be fun, because they this time around they toyed around with like increasing mobility by including those like jumps, right?
Yeah.
Those launch pads.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that it might be fun if there was a way that you could get the quickness buff in the EAZ.
I'm not sure what you mean. Quickness?
The
Quickness is like
the
what you get from the tower, like the floor is hot lava.
Oh,
like
yeah,
this
where
idea.
you're dashing around. Gotcha. I know what you mean now. You sort of glow and you leave a trail.
Yeah.
That'd be
I don't
super
think
fun. What a great
You could,
idea.
yeah, you could actually make some interesting mechanics to like activate that, especially at the time the chests appear. That'd be cool. Yeah. Okay, if you hear some noise here, I've got a new setup now, and we have kitties really interested in it. And they keep hopping up and running into the microphone, so.
Yeah, my cat keeps trying to climb on top of me.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So, one thing I did want to mention in our introduction highlights here is that in the interim, during our downtime, I managed to, and it's something I've been meaning to do for a while. Okay, she's on the keyboard. There you go. One thing I've been meaning to do for a while is break out the mod academies into just sort of separate YouTubes that people could watch and learn from. And I think I managed to get the first 3 out. So if you're listening and you didn't know about that, check out the breakout mod academies from this podcast. Just break them down into, just the mod academy. So that is something to look for. It's the Green Stegos Mod Academy. That's the brand. So it's a little bit of rebranding and recycling as well. But I think it offers some people who don't like the rest of this podcast to learn about the mods. I think it's the most...
Or just get a little refresher.
Get a refresher. Yeah. I kind of did it for myself. I'm actually using them to like learn a little better. To like, I guess I wanted to like re-listen to them anyway. And as I'm learning to utilize mods more effectively in the game, so I kind of did it for myself mostly, but thought other people might benefit and be interested in it. So definitely check that out.
Upcoming changes. Destiny Bungie is keeping Stego on his toes.
Insert David Bowie's sample of changes here, copyright free. There we go. There we go. Yeah, because there is a lot coming down the pike. And I looked at the last 3. We've been 3 TWABs away. We have not broadcast in the last 3 TWABs. And so I went back and reviewed them and came up with some sort of topics just to react to, or some of this stuff I have not really, we were kind of with taking care of the cat, we were kind of in a haze, so I realized I didn't even read the TWAB from like the one about crossplay. I just missed that completely, so I looked over it today and got me excited. I'm kind of excited for that. Crossplay for me means better lobbies. Better meaning more people. You're kind of doubling your population in all the lobbies. That's for any matchmaking, strikes, Crucible, whatever. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts, and if anybody noticed any details of the crossplay that were interesting or anything. Anyone?
I feel like a lot of the changes that I'm noticing that they're trying to implement here is to is trying to level the playing field a little bit
Sure.
between console players and PC players, more specifically,
Or at least reduce the difference a little bit.
the the movement and the key binding and all of that that's available to you on a mouse and keyboard versus.
There's not going to be crossplay really that much. I mean, unless voluntarily between PC and.
Right.
Won't it be for strikes and stuff, or do you still have to opt in?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I was under the impression it was still opt-in.
Yeah, and I forget. Which way does it go? I think the PC players have to invite you in or accept you in or something like that.
Yeah, you join a PC player's thing, then you can go into the PC pool, but you would be the only console player there.
Right.
And you can't do it the other way around, obviously.
Right, right.
But I agree that they are making a lot of changes to bring controller up to speed with M and K, but I think that might just be for quality of life, and because there's a new console and they just want the game to be, more customizable for console players. Because I'm just saying that because there's not going to be that much crossplay between the two. That I think they're just doing that for.
I think they're in the experimental stage.
Maybe in the desire to level the playing field a little bit is so that people will be more likely, or not more likely, but not be 100% opposed to doing crossplay with PC if you're on a console. I don't know.
Right.
It'll probably just be mostly cross.
There's PC players that use controllers voluntarily.
Right, that's true.
I don't think you can outrule the development perspective of it being easier to make some decisions or to do some tweaks, knowing that controller people can achieve more equity in their gameplay as the PC people.
Yeah.
So it might make it easier from a development point of view too. I don't know.
Sure. No, I'm liking the updates.
I am too. And speaking of updates, we got a huge Twitter thread from developer Joe Blackburn on PvP, finally talking about PvP, which we all know has been there's been some radio silence, or at least some inaction to bring, to flow in new content, especially when with respect to PvE content that has come out and changes to PvE and so forth. So there was a lot
better recently, but yeah, they're definitely more and more open and talking about it.
Do we have a pic of this Joe Blackburn that we can show our viewers?
Yeah, we do, but my cat's in the way of the keyboard, so I can't change the slide.
Joe Blackburn.
And of course, there's the crossplay symbol. No, there he is. This should tell you. I mean, I know if you're listening to this, the audio version of this podcast, it's basically Joe Blackburn's Twitter picture, and he means business. He's very serious about these PvP changes. Oh no, but I think that's good. I think PvP is integral to the overall health of the game. Even though I personally am not a PvP person, we learned the lesson.
I think it should be 80-20.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think PvP should exist. They should never cut it from the game. I'm just okay with it being a smaller part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you can say that as not a PvP player, but I don't know. I used to be a main PvP player when I played Halo, so I do appreciate it.
I think the team or the developer made a decision early on. I think Activision, I got the sense that they might have been pushing for competitive PvP, but I think Bungie was going the other direction and made the decision, for it not to be competitive, for it to just be fun, crazy space magic stuff that would not be competitive. and they satisfied, I
And by
think,
competitive, you mean like esports?
exactly, esports competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think when they made that decision not to go for esports with Destiny, it was a relief, and they were able to do a lot of things. But I think the compromise was to create a competitive game mode called Trials, and it worked out really nice actually for them. It was like, got them at the top of the Twitch table there for a while, or at least on the weekends. It was really good, and I think it breathed new life into the game while they were still trying to identify themselves in Destiny 1 anyway. And
But is that relevant now? It's so long ago.
we're still playing.
Yeah.
I think it is relevant. I think it kept the game alive.
Destiny is obviously relevant. I'm just saying, is having trials. Do we need trials for streaming? Because
That's a
every
good
time
point.
I check Twitch, Destiny is like still doing pretty well, but it, you
Right.
know, not
Right.
necessarily on trials days.
Right,
Or only
right.
right.
No, you make a good point there. But I'm glad.
Destiny's doing well without it, so it's almost like, how much is that actually still?
Sorry about that. We have a cat going crazy. Okay. All
Every
right.
cat owner knows.
Yeah. Anything else about the there's going to be some recycled maps coming from D1. PvP's getting a sandbox update as well. Yeah, I don't recall many of the details, but he did go into some detail on that Twitter thread that people should.
I think the overall reaction of the community was positive, especially the PvP community. So I would defer to them, and if they're happy, I'm happy.
Exactly.
Right.
I agree.
Yep. Absolutely.
No more wasted melees. Topic number 5.
Yes, I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, especially as a hunter, I feel I'm just so many times. So
Wasting your melee?
Yeah,
Yeah.
wasting my melee. Going to punch somebody and throwing down a smoke bomb instead. I like this idea. It will definitely take getting used to for me, right? Because you get so used to.
Yeah. It's
you
going to be
have
an
to,
adjustment.
Bind it to a totally different thing. So it'll be interesting.
I'm looking forward to it. For
I'm
sure.
glad.
Big,
I'm
big
happy
QOL.
for it.
Big quality of life improvement there.
Yeah.
I agree. Absolutely. It's
All right. And after that, they mentioned, I forget whether this was the, well, it doesn't matter, but they talk about a lot of ability adjustments. And I get the feeling that they are, well, I think it's pretty obvious actually that they are going to reduce ability use, or I don't know if it's probably more an ability economy is getting tighter in PvP because they want it to be primarily gunplay. But this was not without some controversy. The slide nerf caused a little bit of a ripple in the Twitterverse. Any thoughts on the slide nerf?
Does it affect more than just Titans, or is it just a Titan thing?
No, I think it's all
That's
slide.
how out of the loop I am.
I think it's for any.
It's for
any slide.
any shotgun
who's
aim.
sliding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think
What is the nerf? This went over my head. I knew there was some kind of controversy, but when I heard that there was a controversy around slide, I just didn't. I was like, that's stupid. I didn't check in. But now I'm curious.
Well, you're not a PvP person. It's a big deal if you're a shotgun ape, and that's your modus operandi when you go into PvP, is you buzz around shotgunning everybody in the face, right? And you've learned how to use that slide shotgun technique to do that. What
the nerf? Is accuracy down or something?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, here it is. While sliding, players now incur the following weapon penalties: minus 20 stability, plus 15% shotgun pellet spread. So this is definitely aimed towards this. And 1.5 times flinch. So, yeah, it's going to be harder to do that.
Yeah, that seems a good change. I mean, if you think about it, like in a reality sense, you can't slide and do all the same things you were doing while you're not sliding.
Right.
That's what I thought.
think for
Oh my
people
gosh,
who are
Romance
still
Girl, that's
very
exactly what I
skilled
thought.
Are going to be able
Yeah.
to adjust to this, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel
it'll be an adjustment, but I think that it does definitely, like, if someone's like running towards you and sliding, I feel like for the person who's going against the person who's sliding, it gives them a better chance of being able to escape from it, because they can flinch them, or between the flinch and especially with the shotgun pellet spread, so potentially not getting killed immediately because not all the pellets will hit you.
It also gives room for like a slide focused exotic, maybe, if you really want that to be your build.
Right.
Pay for it.
good point.
Pay for
Are
that.
there
I didn't think of
mods that help with slide too, Stego?
We have a slide shot on a weapon perk.
A weapon perk, but that's it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really going to be like it just makes it brings it up to feasible, as opposed to making it like the way that you use that shotgun is with sliding. And I like this. I like this nerf. I also think it's important to preface that to remember that Bungie prefaced this announcement by saying, like, the numbers reading this, it looks worse than it actually feels.
Yeah.
So it's not actually like a big
worse
nerf.
on paper.
Yeah. I was going to say that you have to remember that this is in the context of a huge sandbox update.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like if this was the only thing getting altered, that'd be one thing. But there's a bunch of parts of the sandbox that are getting altered. So you have to see how it fits in with that context.
Right.
My perspective on this and some of the other changes we're talking about here, just that have been out the past month or announced for season 15 and going forward to Witch Queen, is this shift in philosophy. It seems like in D1 there was a lot, when the community started, that vocal community started criticizing the game. It seemed like the philosophy was to balance the game, in particular PvP, to have it balanced and to have every weapon viable. If you really want to work hard on it and get good at a weapon, it was supposed to be viable. And they quickly found out that was impossible to do. You couldn't have, and when they did balance everything, I think that was a big push to what D2 vanilla was a balanced every gun is equal almost thing. Team shooting was ruling the day.
Guns and heavy.
Exactly. And
snipers are heavy. Yeah.
Right. And it seemed like balanced was boring and it wasn't fun. And so they realized that, and now ever since they've been working on this, and it goes hand in hand with the seasonal model of shifting the unbalance around just to keep it interesting. It's okay for things to be a little OP or to be meta. And that's just the natural sort of evolution of these, first-person shooters. Is that, and it creates that, ooh, I've got to get that, or I want to get good at this, and then to realize that only lasts for so long. And they need to push it and sort of create this desire to try something else out. And that's not without its growing pains, because people get used to their slide shotgun technique. They worked really hard on it, and it's sort of it's almost like sunsetting it, right? Mm-hmm. But I think it's important. And I think it works. I think this model of a changing balance or a moving meta is working. The game has longevity because of it now. There has to be some kind of sunsetting, even though the sunsetting they tried to implement was a disaster or it didn't work. They at least tried it, you know. They made an attempt, but they're finding other ways of sunsetting. And they have to do this stuff. They have to.
I agree that this sandbox approach is just a lot more realistic and hopefully easier for them, because just a balanced sandbox, I agree, is impossible.
Right. And
I
no
think
fun.
It's working really well for PvP, honestly. I know that a lot will disagree, but every time I go into PvP, I actually am like impressed. Like I feel like all of the things that I have to complain about are mostly ability based in PvP.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
would
think
agree with
the
that.
weapons are balanced.
Generally, when I die in PvP, it feels like it's always something different.
That's what I was going to get.
I noticed the same
not
thing.
That I'm doing it, not that I'm playing PvP that much, but when I do, it's not like, wow, I'm getting killed by the same
Luna's
two.
Hell, like the Luna's Hell days.
It's not. It's not.
Like, okay,
it's
Luna's
not
Hell.
Right.
It's not
right.
hand igneous hammer, and then the shotgun.
That one.
It's just
Mindbenders, Fellwinters.
Astral Horizon.
Fellwinters. Yeah.
Let's name shotguns.
I put it out of my head because I didn't have like PTSD. So I
from
feel
Fellwinters.
because it's just like every time you went in, it was like 50% of my kills were Fellwinters, and then the other 50% were some kind of hand cannon, probably a 120.
A 120, right?
So,
exactly.
So the fact that they've taken the pot and shaken it up, and there are a lot of people using a lot of different things, and it's at least I'm dying just as much, but at least it's more interesting.
Various weapons, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Enough of that.
I will just one more thing on that.
Sure.
I will say that like with we'll get to the champion mods. I will say that like having certain weapons tied to the champion mods does make me tired of that weapon type.
No, you've mentioned that before, and I agree with you.
I agree that they do the meta. Like it is a good idea to like let's focus, fusion rifles this season, but I would like in the span of a season to have more options on what I'm using in my Nightfall loadouts, for instance.
Right. I know you've been vocal about that before. It's like not liking to be told what to do.
It does feel like the way that they have it now is that like they have like a new season, and then the grandmasters come out, and then the community figures out what the meta is for that season, and then there's like one or two feasible loadouts. There's like not. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you obviously have to use those champion mods. There's no way around it because there's champions all over the place. Those grandmasters, and
I don't do grandmasters to clarify, but for Nightfalls and
I've
stuff,
done them in the past.
Go with champions.
Talked a little bit about having our clanmates take us through maybe before the season ends, but we don't know whether that'll happen. No pressure.
You say no pressure, but I feel like you're pressuring them.
I am not pressuring them.
I said that to get Cassie to laugh.
Okay.
No, we already talked about this, the controller sensitivity and traction. They're giving us traction, and I guess it's going to be sort of a slider thing, or the controller will be able to go beyond 10 sensitivity to insanity, I guess, up to 20. And we already talked about this. Is a good thing, right? They're trying to reduce the differences between, or at least give console players some of the perks that come with PC mouse and keyboard, right? So,
right.
Looking forward to it, just trying it out and just fooling around, and seeing what it does. I like traction, by the way. There's I forget what they're called, but there's Warlock exotic boots that give you traction, and I always enjoyed that feeling. that tighter
They
turn
do,
radius.
am I wrong here? Or are they doing something with the traction mod? We haven't gotten to that yet, but I feel like they are.
He just said that.
Oh, okay.
I think it's going to be
You're not wrong.
default.
He just explained it.
You'll be able to turn it on and off, is my
They're
understanding.
taking away the mod. There's no mod anymore. They're
Right.
just going to make it a toggleable feature in your settings.
Toggleable.
Gotcha.
Yep, exactly.
Toggleable.
It'll be toggleable. Say it, Sally. Sally Bug. What?
Yes. Toggleable.
Toggleable.
Toggleable?
Toggleable.
Toggability? Okay.
Talk about it.
All right. Armor and mod reworks are on the way. That was the next thing I noticed in the TWABs that they're talking about. Well, in particular, the super regenerating exotics. So this gets back to what I was saying before about moving the meta a little bit, changing things up, having things that beautiful designs, wonderful ideas, but just kind of, in the choice pool was not very appetizing. They're souping them up and making them very enticing, some of these things. We've seen like these exotics. Did anything stand out to anybody if you've looked that over that's coming?
A couple of things that had kind of stood out to me that from a negative standpoint.
Oh, no. We're not negative on this podcast, though.
the fact that some of these exotics are going to be tied to you using a weapon that's similar to the subclass, that using an energy weapon that's the same subclass as you, that you get a perk if you're get kills with an energy weapon that matches the subclass that you're wearing. And that's a thing, right? I'm not imagining that.
Get out your Borealis.
Oh, it's actually like the basis of elemental wells too.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So I like that. Okay. I mean, from initially I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I like that. And then my thought went back to, okay, wait a minute. What about if you are doing higher end content where match game is a thing?
Yeah.
And now
the more reason, because now it's like you have to balance that because you're getting a ton of perks, but you're going to have to talk with your team to get all of the things covered.
You should never have to talk to your teammates.
My initial thought is like, wow, if they do that, maybe what they would end up doing is like just saying, okay, you're going to be the solar, I will be the arc, and you be the void, and kind of have that balance. But there are match game activities that are designed around doing something solo. I'm thinking the lost sectors, the higher end lost sectors in particular. And
Get out your Borealis.
And again, you just use a different. I mean, I think when you're doing those lost sectors, survivability is that. So the armor that you're using is probably going to be more related to survivability than it would be getting those energy weapon perks. But I don't know. I
hear what you're saying though, but it is hard when you only have one damage type.
Right. I mean, for me, it was just like, okay, it's a little bit limiting in that way. But on the other hand, I like that there's like that they're rethinking these things and they're symbiotic. I also like the fact, like I noticed one of the mods, the Bombardiers, is that what you get from the bombs that drop are different depending on the subclass.
Oh yeah.
So
more choices to make.
The idea that there were
more strategy.
That they're giving more life to other exotics where it's like you don't have to necessarily use a specific subclass, because some exotics are attached to a specific subclass, but others aren't, and I feel like they're opening up that a little bit more.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think that. I like that too. There's also some mod change. Well, I was just going to say quick before we move on from the super regenerating exotic changes they're making. The stag looks really interesting to me, and the storm dancer looked really interesting to me. They're really kind of, they have the data that, if you're running Storm Trance, you're probably going to be using the Tempest, right? Helmet. So they see that and they say, well, you know what? Let's mix it up a little bit. Let's give these people, these Arc Warlock, Storm Trance people, another option to try out. Something new. I like it. I just like what they're doing all over. There are some mod changes. Finders, Scavengers, and Holsters was one of the headings. And so I think what's happening is Finders are no longer going to stack. It was kind of a relief to hear that. Or is it the Scavengers that aren't stacking? I forget. But
Scavengers don't stack.
Okay.
So, like, if you have 2 shotgun Scavengers in the Crucible, you don't pick up 3 rounds anymore for each green brick.
Okay. I have no problem with that. Especially,
yeah,
you know,
I like that change.
Yeah. And holsters are going to be... Holster mods are going to be a new mod, is my understanding, right?
Yeah.
And that's a mod where it replenishes your ammo over time in holstered weapons.
Is that instead of reload?
It's instead of Scavenger. Now in the legs, you can choose between Scavenger perks and holster perks.
Okay, so it's it's going to be in the legs.
It's in addition to So it's in addition to like a reload perk.
I think so. I think so. Yeah. I think it's added.
I don't know why you would need both.
But it doesn't apply to like weapons that only have one.
True.
Like rocket launchers that only have
and
one
if you
in the
have
chamber.
like a kill clip, you would want to reload on your own.
Right. Yeah. And then we're going to talk about this more. I'm sure Green Stego's going to address this a little bit in his Mod Academy today. But there's a Warmind nerf and an Elemental Well buff. So I think, again, they're just pushing things around, moving the furniture around. I like it. And
I think I saw something from like the Warmind cell nerf looks very significant.
Yeah, everything's like
really
seemed like
nerfed
it was cut in half, like 20 meters down to 10 meters.
Yeah,
at least, right?
And
I was like, woo!
I saw on Twitter, Glad said he thinks they'll still be feasible. He has hope.
Awesome. So moving away from these reworks, this is my personal favorite topic of the day. New Iron Banner weapons and armor coming in Season 15. And so I actually like the armor. I like the color of it, actually. And the one kind of looks like the... Is that the Titan? It has the... no, that's not the Titan. It's the Hunter. It has something that looks like the Crown of Tempest, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Something to look forward to for the Iron Banana people.
I like that Iron Banner armor.
Yeah, it looks
I
really
like
cool.
armor.
I always like the Iron Banner
I'm
armor.
excited to have something to like kind of go after and give me a reason
play it
to
again.
go into Iron Banner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I still have some Iron Banner tokens that I've been holding on to.
Hoarding.
So it'll be nice to have something to. And what is that? A new pulse rifle and a new sidearm, and both of those. I'm ready for a pulse rifle meta to come back, like to use them more often, because I feel like I haven't used them that much. And
Right.
I really like the grid skipper, but I don't really have as much reason to use it over some of the other things. And so
I'm hoping that this sidearm is an aggressive burst sidearm like Breach Light, which was Sunset.
yeah. It'd be nice to have another. And do we know whether or not it's primary or an energy?
We don't yet.
Like in the first slot or an energy slot?
No, we don't know yet.
Okay, well.
One thing I didn't
I
have in
think
our
I'm gonna find out.
notes that was mentioned was the champion mods coming in on August 24th for the new season 15. There's been some controversy there, to say the least, right? Do we know? Does anybody happen to have on hand? Here's the thing: they tweeted out the picture of the new mods, the champion mods. But I don't know the symbols well enough to. I really don't. I'm so sorry.
A fusion rifle. I remember one being a fusion rifle.
Anti-barrier fusion rifle.
Okay.
Overload bow.
Okay.
Isn't it overload bow now?
No.
No. Okay. Overload bow.
It was last season.
It was last season. They're bringing that back. Okay.
Yeah. Like the Tikus again. You can do that. And then the rest were disruption.
An anti-barrier is auto rifle, it looks like. Am I right?
Yeah. And
Okay.
that's the only option.
Auto rifle and fusion.
I thought it was fusion rifle.
Might be
fusion.
both.
No, it's not fusion.
What is fusion?
Fusion and linear fusion are combo together, and they are unstoppable.
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 That's what that is.
Oh.
The X.
Alongside pulse rifles and sidearms are all unstoppable.
Wow. Why so many unstoppables, but only
That was my
one
reaction.
option for barrier?
Only one choice
They
for
have some
anti-barrier.
explaining to do.
It's very annoying.
Like one choice for barrier, one choice for overload, and
They
then
did also mention there
three
was going to be
choices
a
for
sword, right?
unstoppable.
Yeah. Sword is going to be a disruption blade, so it's going to be overload as well, which we've had before.
All right,
But the
yeah.
annoying thing is, no matter what enemy faction you're up against, if there are champions, then there's barrier champions.
Right.
So that's the one that you want the most
Like, why is there
variability in.
only one?
One choice.
And
well,
and it's
yeah.
this season it's been anti-barrier auto rifle, and there was
They
also
have to. There's going to be an artifact mod that's like grenade or melee bust through anti. There has to be, right?
or
'Cause these
my
are just
thinking
weapons.
is right now that the seasonal exotic may be anti-barrier.
Yeah, I thought that too, but that's
possible.
still not a lot. That's
It's
still
not.
forcing you to use one weapon.
Yeah.
One weapon or one type of weapon. Yeah.
Well, especially if it's long range, then they really would be forcing you to use one weapon.
Right.
Right. Right.
If it was the
It's
only
not-
anti-barrier long range weapon.
Yeah.
Look, I have an open mind. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what
But
happens
they raised more questions than they answered with these champion mods.
with that single tweet.
Right. Right.
Yep. Yeah.
And that was just like a picture, so we don't know for sure whether or not that's all of them, right? Because
They
all
did
we're
say
going
there was
off
gonna
of
be-
is
they
that
missed a-
tweeted picture.
They missed one, and they said it was a sword. So
Okay.
we're assuming that they only missed one, but
Okay. Well, like I'm with you, Cassie. At this point, it's just like I'm just gonna have an open mind, and we'll just kind of see what happens. But I am sort of on your side in terms of it is getting a little tiring to be directed towards playing with one particular play style if you want to do that.
A weapon choice.
especially because we already have
content,
bounties
that
telling
higher
us
content.
which weapons to use. Like, there doesn't really
Right.
need, like, you know what I mean? It's so annoying having bounties that are like, use a fusion rifle, but then going into an activity where that's not really feasible.
Right,
So it's
right.
like-
Yeah,
There's like a
it's like
disconnect.
there is, right. And I noticed that happens pretty often, right? It's often that the strike bounties or the seasonal bounties will be related to using a particular weapon. But then you're going into content that has champions of which you can't use that
And of
weapon to
course,
stun the
there's
champion.
plenty of
Yeah.
non-champion content, but I'd still like to be able to take out a champion in my own way.
Right. There needs to be, I mean, and I don't know what the answer to that is, but I'm wondering, is there a way to be able to stun these champions in other ways other than just
That's what
using.
Stego wants there to be. There it should be like a kill switch where it's like if we have these mods, we can easily take them out. But there should be like another way to trip out, like if your powered melee intrinsically stuns a disruption champion, something like that. And if there's just an intrinsic way to deal with champions. So that,
or even just
in
like
high level content, I get it. You want to mod out, you want to spec out, but it'd be nice if I'm just jumping into an override, not having to worry like, oh wait, do I have an anti-barrier on me?
Right.
I'd
like to just circle back to something that Green Stego said in one of our previous episodes that resonated with me. He was and this is with respect to mods dictating which weapon you use. He was in favor of mods that you make progress with any weapon. It's just you make faster progress with a particular weapon. So it gives you that choice of, if I get out my pulse, I'll get this done twice as fast. But, I want to use my Tikus right now. But you still make progress. Kills count towards weapons bounties. It's just they move a little slower. So that way you feel like you're always, because that's one of the cool things about Destiny. You just play it, you're making progress somewhere. Especially if you picked up some bounties, you should be making progress there as well.
It'd be interesting, like what if they, and I don't know, have they done this in the past before? I feel like maybe they have, but it would be interesting if they just did something like, okay, a solar subclass, like a solar ability.
That can't happen. They'll never do that. They've already said they don't want to rock, paper, scissors it.
Right, we'll stun unstoppable,
Subclasses.
but arc subclass will stun an overload, and void subclass, that kind of thing, like, or void damage. I shouldn't say subclass.
It's like, how would the champions be different from having a solar shield or a void shield? That's
no different. Yeah, you can't make them elemental. It removes the characteristic.
Running in circles at that point.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I
sound like Kuj though.
Kuj?
Yeah,
I sound like Kuj.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
You sound like Kuj. Literally.
I'm just trying to. I'm brainstorming with myself here on some other options besides being like beholding to one particular.
Yeah, I think melee
archetype.
Grenade, a super could maybe be a way to like counteract champions. I don't know how they would balance that, but they've explored it with artifact mods in the past. I just think there should be an intrinsic way to take them out with your abilities.
Yeah. Like a super should almost always stun one, right?
Why can't it's
true.
Your
super, for God's sake.
Intrinsically take out a shield, stun a champion.
Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna hold on to your super and use it for that, you should at least be able to like, I don't know. It feels like a super should almost always.
Yeah. Now that you're bringing it up, I don't know why supers don't just stun any champion.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
The final line item on highlights, and we've had a lot of them because we haven't been on for so long, is the epilogue that came out last Tuesday, the sort of finale to the storyline of season 14, Season of the Splicer. And so my question is, I know Sallybug and I have finished it. My question is to Green Stego and Romance Girl. Have you guys been able to do that yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, I think before we discuss
Spoilers?
we should at least at this point say, that we're going to be going into some spoilers.
So for the next couple minutes.
There's not too many people like on live right now, but if you're listening or are on live and haven't done that mission yet, this is your fair warning to step out, go do that. Go come back and listen.
Just do it.
It's not very long. It's not. It's not very long, so
Yeah.
there'll be another spoiler warning when we get into the lore segment today as well. So just be
Right.
prepared for that. But
Yeah.
okay, spoiler warning. 3, 2, 1. All right. So, what you guys think of?
Oh, we really liked it. We really we were just taken for a narrative ride. I think when we were playing it, because I didn't get the ending spoiled at all. I know a lot of people did this season.
I kind of did. There was a tweet by Lucky, tweeted something out, and I was like, "Oh man, I can't unsee that."
Exactly.
The only thing
It
that
was
I
going
knew
around a lot this season. I was lucky that that
Prior to
Other than
Prior
that, I
to-
wouldn't have known a thing.
Yeah, prior to Ishtar Collective, actually, the one nice thing they've done, a more recent change, because people are really being more in tune with the community and not wanting to do spoilers. So Ishtar Collective has now put on, if you want to read this content potentially has spoilers, so like enter at your own risk type of thing. But before they did that, I did read a piece of lore that kind of gave me a spoiler, but I didn't know the exact details of it, and I do try to stay away from.
The last lore entry was actually released in game. Like it had to have been a few weeks ago because I had already read it in game.
Right.
But when I read it, I was like, "What? They're at some kind of memorial? What is happening? This is so cryptic. I don't know." And it wasn't a spoil. Like I guess because because my brain wasn't in the space looking for spoilers. I just wasn't like, "Oh well, this doesn't make sense." I guess it's just one of those cryptic Destiny lore entries that don't make sense.
Yeah, and not quite sure what the memorial is for and all of that,
Yeah. But I reread it after the epilogue, and it made a lot more sense.
It makes a lot more sense. I really liked the mission. We happened to be on with our clanmate Ghost, and he said, "No, I'd be glad to do this with you because I made the mistake of exiting out before the end of the override, like not letting it ride out." So he completely missed the cutscene.
A lot of people
missed the
that.
cutscene, so he was like happy to do it with us, so he could like actually be a part of that cutscene.
Yeah.
So
you can also do it on your alt if you do that.
Right.
And viewers, listeners, let it be known that this is a pet peeve of our friend Ghost. It bothers him when other people leave during the countdown. It's not like so I'm
I think part of it is just like, it's done so many override missions because let's face it, he plays a lot of Destiny and he'd already completed all of the seasonal challenges. That's a lot of override because you have to open up a lot of chests and so forth.
I think it's muscle memory for most people because they give like a minute and a half countdown at the end. So
exactly,
usually people grab their loot and leave, and they've already heard the dialogue, so they don't need to stick around. And
right.
I don't blame people for leaving after that. I really wish they had not put the cutscene there because
it's kind of I don't know why they decided. Maybe they just thought, well, hey, since this is the override, it's in a different location, people will know just because it's in a different location.
Also, your first time doing it, and there's dialogue at the end. I think when you're first time doing a mission, it's common knowledge a lot of the time. But since this mission was so similar to the other overrides that we had done so many times.
Right.
I get why people didn't think that way. It's muscle memory. It's like, oh, it's the end of the override. And the override boss was the same. So it wasn't.
Or the ending, or just somehow making the ending dialogue give you a clue that there's more to like wait out until the end.
Yeah, or just play it when you load into the tower.
Yeah, or
which is usually when they do cutscenes like that.
We're getting distracted on the content itself.
I thought
it was in an odd place. That cutscene was in an odd place. It was out. I mean, if Paul Tassi missed it, come on.
That being said, I liked the cutscene. I liked the last override. It was very similar, but they're it's kind of sad to see one of our favorites, and that is Lakshmi. Although she hasn't been a favorite this season, obviously.
I was gonna say, are you really gonna stand there and say that our favorite?
I would clarify that and say
I'm gonna
favorite
say my
voice
favorite
actor.
in terms
One
of
of our
a
favorite
voice actor.
actors,
Yeah. We're
That's fair.
a big fan of hers, so the fact that she's leaving Destiny's just one of those other busy voice actors who probably just doesn't have the time.
Well, but it fits with the storyline very well.
It does fit with the storyline. I mean, they were building up toward. I mean, we were building up to something happening with Lakshmi, whether she was going to get.
It wasn't just Lakshmi. By Hideo. By
right. Factions are gone.
Factions are gone. Oh my gosh, you're right. Factions are gone.
You don't have like new players coming into the tower and being like, "Who's this guy?"
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not they do anything, because honestly, the factions were kind of the governing body. So how are they going to take that over? Like, what are they going to do? Is it going to be the Vanguard and the Guardians?
Vanguard, and we've been.
It did it during the last podcast.
I was going to say it feels like our
We'll be back on. We reconnected, so we should be streaming again.
There we go.
Sorry about that, folks.
I don't know if our internet got unstable or whatever.
No, it was the same thing that happened during the Go Tour podcast.
Oh, yeah, I remember that happening. Yep.
I don't know what's causing that. I have no idea what's causing that. Anyway, we're back on. So I think that's it for the highlights today. So our next section would be the Paracasual Destiny loadouts. It's time for Paracasual loadouts. What's everybody been using lately? Any interesting loadouts or weapons that you took out of the vault to give it a whirl?
Wither Horde while we still have Breach and Clear.
Yeah.
I still haven't taken off my Wither Horde. I was trying to think if I've done anything else, but it's still
with the Wither Horde.
Hunter.
Yeah, for me, it's either Wither Horde or Anarchy. I've got one or the other on almost at all times.
Yeah, I think you
Breach and Clear.
Yeah,
it's that Breach and Clear.
Except that, I mean, I will say but again, this is like those seasonal challenges, and there's like, gosh, do I want started working towards getting all of those, and the last one was machine gun kills. So I was using Thunderlord, but I'm kind of underwhelmed by Thunderlord. It's like that thing needs.
Going from Anarchy to Thunderlord is quite the. Yeah,
I know. It's just, it's like, gosh, I feel like my Chroma Rush does more damage than this.
That's how I feel when I get out of my Arcstrider super and then start using my Wither Horde again. I'm like, what is the point of using my super?
Right, exactly. When you have something else that clears enemies way easier. So, yeah. Well, that Breach and Clear we know is completely OP, and it'll be fun to see what they come up with. But again, it's like, yeah, it's hard to choose anything other than grenade launcher in at least one of your slots.
Right.
At all times.
Yeah.
But yeah, besides that.
I went out and completed, this was just, I think earlier in the week, I completed the Cryosthesia 77K Catalyst. And you have to kill like 50 Guardians in PvP. I think you could probably do it in Gambit as well.
For the Catalyst or for the quest to get the Catalyst?
Oh, the quest to get the Catalyst.
Okay.
Yeah, the Catalyst is any kills. Yeah. But in order to get the Catalyst from Banshee, you have to get 50 kills, 50 Guardian kills.
But if you've loaded up your season pass, you should have an accelerator on that.
Yeah. Yeah, so it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too painful. Plus, you know, I need to go into Crucible more regularly anyway, just as a check-in and to do it. You know, it's part of the game. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying it out once I'm probably about halfway through it. I'm just, once I get the catalyst, I just leave the weapon on until I finish it.
I never did get the, I feel like I never did get the rhythm of that gun. I'm assuming since you've used it quite a bit that you have kind of figured it out.
Yeah,
And
it
was
fires on
wondering if you
release of the
had-
trigger.
Right. So that's what you have to.
It
When,
just takes.
It's such a different
when the burst
timing.
is active, right? Or does it always fire?
It
on
always
release?
fires on release. So when you're just firing it, I just rapid fire with my right finger. I just spam it, is what I do.
Okay.
And try to aim as best
right.
I can. And then when you get the LN2 burst or the liquid nitrogen burst, that's when if you hold the trigger down, you get like a charged shot that freezes targets. You hold the trigger to fire the freezing projectile. And then when I get the catalyst, you get something called cold efficiency, and that's going to instantly refill the magazine when you shatter a frozen enemy.
I wish that it had just come with that intrinsically.
Yeah. Yeah, would have been nice.
I get that you want to make the catalyst something to go for, but the weapon is it's hard to get the catalyst using it like that. It's hard for me to I have finished the catalyst quest. I did the PvP portion, and I think I might be 30% on the catalyst itself. It's very grindy.
Because I'm assuming you have to kill using the charge shot.
No, you don't.
No,
You
it's
could
just
ignore
kills.
that.
It's just kill enemies
Okay.
with it. But
It is
pretty-
it just feels funky.
You want to use the freezy thing. I like using the freezing function. It's just very hard when you freeze a big guy and you're immediately out of ammo, so you have to switch to another weapon, and by the time you switch to another weapon, they've pretty much unfreeze.
Yeah, now that you mention it,
right.
the perk is pretty useless without the catalyst full.
Yeah, exactly. I want to have that what is it, the play loop or whatever, the play cycle loop with this weapon, but you have to have the catalyst to have that whole experience with it. Same with Wither Horde, right? It was Wither Horde. Wither Horde gets auto-loading holster with its catalyst.
And a huge bump to handling.
Yeah.
It's just I want the catalyst to be I don't know if they should be if they're that integral to the exotic itself, they should be a little less grindy so that I'm not sick of the weapon by the time I get the catalyst.
Good point.
Right.
Fair point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was actually, because Deathbringer was kind of so much fun especially with that boost to rocket launchers, but I kind of gave up about 70, maybe 75% of the way through, even knowing that it was going to do something, because I just got bored with using the same weapon. Plus, once I had unlocked Breach and Clear, it was kind of hard to.
Okay. Is everybody ready for a little coffee break?
I am ready for
It's funny you mentioned
coffee.
It's funny you mentioned coffee break.
Just grabbed a can from the fridge.
The Paracasual Destiny podcast presents
A can from the fridge.
Coffee Boutique.
I could use some
What?
coffee.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Could you use some coffee?
I'm just wondering a can of what?
Whoop
La
ass.
Colombe,
I'm sorry, I didn't.
La
hear.
Colombe triple shot draft latte.
Woo!
Oh, yum.
You're going
Looks like I'm gonna have to go grab another one.
Eva Levante style. Sally Bug 2, is there any coffee left?
There's
There's not.
any
Right.
made right now.
All right, we'll have to
no.
make
We
some
finished-
after the
We
podcast
finished our
and-
first pot.
Yeah, make
We're
some
gonna
iced
need to
coffee.
make some. We're gonna need to make some iced coffee.
coffee.
It's been so hot. We're going through a little bit of a heat wave up here in Maine. So
But Sally Bug, do you mind describing the coffee while I take a quick break here?
no, not at all.
All right, thank you.
Our coffee is a blend of Sumatra and what else? Sumatra, and I think it's a vanilla hazelnut blend. So it's like a kind of a combo with that. So it's just yeah, pure on. We've been doing some blended coffees from our favorite coffee roaster, Carpe Diem. Shout out to them. But we just went with the pure French roasted Sumatran, which is kind of like my go-to if I'm just going out to the store to grab a bag of beans. Just something about the flavor of that particular type of coffee. It just calls to me. So, yeah. So that's what we're drinking, or that's
Nothing
what
like a good bag of beans.
That's what we did drink this morning. It is gone now, sadly enough. So.
Okay, I'm back. Hello?
We never knew you were gone.
Oh, coffee break, bathroom break, what's the difference, right? Is it time for our next segment? No? Hello?
Sorry. Yes, I'm ready.
I can't hear Sally Bug.
She's not talking. I can't hear her. Is she ready for our next segment or not? The world wants to know.
Inquiring minds want to know. Well, anyway, let's go to the next segment. I'm going to introduce it here.
Get it together now for Green Stego's Mod Academy.
All right, Green Stego's Mod Academy. Take it away, Green Stego.
All right, y'all. We're going to talk today about the third kind of like archetype for the combat mod slot. We've already discussed Charged with Light. We've already discussed Warmind Cells. Today we're talking Elemental Wells. Elemental Wells were introduced in like two phases, kind of similar to Charged with Light, where they were introduced in Season of Dawn and then again in Season of Arrivals. We just got our second batch of Elemental Well mods this season, and our first batch came last season. So these mods come in two types, very similar to Charged with Light mods, although they're not color-coded like Charged with Light. The mods either help you generate an elemental well, or they give you an extra perk when you pick up the elemental well. Because elemental wells just inherently, by themselves, give you a little boost. They give you ability energy when you run over them. And if it's the same type that you have, then it gives you ability energy for all three of your abilities: grenade, melee, and class. If you pick up somebody else's elemental well that's a different element than your subclass type, then it just gives you the one where you need it the most, the one where it's like the lowest. So we've got like a little selection here. There's like a couple more than this, but these are the big ones that help you generate Warmind Cells, elemental wells. There are three that help you make an elemental well, that help you spawn an elemental well of your own subclass type, whatever you have equipped. defeating a combatant with your super, weapon takedowns with a damage type that matches your subclass element, and defeating a combatant with a grenade. Those are all handy ways to spawn elemental wells of your type. But this season we got a new batch, one for each of the armor affinities, solar, arc, and void, that can help spawn a specific one. And they kind of go in theme with what we've talked about before in our Mod Academy. The solar one has to do with explosions. If you get a multi-kill with an explosion, then you get a solar elemental well. If you get up and close and personal in somebody's face and you finish them with the arc mod equipped, then you spawn 2 arc elemental wells. And the void one's very neat. It's after you use your class ability, then it makes it so your next weapon final blow spawns a void elemental well. So very handy ways for you to pick up, for you to spawn these elemental wells. And yeah, they give you ability energy, but there's a bunch of other mods that can kind of help soup up those wells to give you a bigger boost, make those a little bit more enticing, and kind of like actually complete your build. Instead of it being like a nice little boost, it actually is like a build that you want to go for. And so there are some really nice perks here with these other mods. We got Elemental Charge, a bit of a crossover. You can see there that it's colored in green because it makes you charged with light when you pick up an elemental well. And it inherently doubles if you have, if it's the same type that you have. These other two only work if you pick up the subclass, a matching elemental well, Font of Might, which just got a buff, and Font of Wisdom. Font of Might gives you a huge 25% damage buff for 10 seconds. So that's incredible. And it doesn't specify...
Are you okay, Sally Bug?
She left again.
Okay.
All right. So the Font of Might is definitely one to look into. 25% damage buff for 10 seconds, but it doesn't specify that it needs to be the energy type. That doesn't need to be in the energy slot. It just needs to be a weapon damage of the same element that you have equipped. So if you're a Nova Bomb, then you want to be using a Void weapon. But that could be Gnawing Hunger. That could be Falling Guillotine. That could be Threaded Needle. That could be the rocket launcher, Death's Whisper. Deathbringer. So something to look forward to, maybe, especially with that buff that it's getting. And Font of Wisdom gives you super energy in addition to the regular ability energy. And then on the flip side over here, we got 3 more that give you a boost based on if you pick up a specific element of a well. Not one that matches you, but one, well, the solar one is only if you pick up a solar elemental well. It gives you increased regeneration, picking up, and then there's the arc mod, which gives you a boost to your next melee damage, which now that we have a little bit more control over our melees, maybe we want to employ some more melee builds. And the Void one, finally, picking up a Void Elemental Well, reduces the damage that you take from combatants for a short period of time. So, I have a question for Romance Girl. Do you stand by your previous statement that,
Oh, gosh.
quote, elemental well mods are stupid and shouldn't have been brought into the game?
Yes, I absolutely stand by that, even though I never said that.
You did, but you said it very sarcastically.
Um, I don't remember the context in which I said that. I think elemental well mods are fine.
Yeah, I think they're going to
Especially
be
with-
better actually with the buffs.
Yeah.
I appreciate what the team is doing with these special mods. I just haven't gotten around to using them yet.
Well,
No pun
I
intended.
have I have a build that I'm excited to try probably next season. After these tunes go live and we get a new artifact mod, I am going to be going the Void route. I'm going to be activating my class ability so that my next weapon blow spawns a Void Elemental Well. I'm going to pick up that Void Well to reduce incoming damage and also charge me with light. What am I going to use that charge with light for? Protective light. Give me another buff for damage resistance. So going like really tanky is the route that I'm excited to go. And you may notice that that's only 4 mods. There's a bit of a flex spot. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with that last one. Probably experiment with Font of Might. But I don't know. Maybe throw in another like perk for charge with light or something. I don't know.
I like the combination of the Reaping Wellmaker and Well of Tenacity to get your tank up, and the Elemental Charge. I mean, you could even increase your damage with Elemental Charge, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for the technical difficulty. Sallybug, are you back with us?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
I hear you now.
hear you loud
Okay,
and clear.
yeah, my computer completely crashed, and then when I restarted it, I couldn't get my headphone jack to work, so I had to like restart it again.
Oh,
I think I'm good now.
I
So
think you're cursed a little bit.
yeah.
you might be a little bit cursed. Exactly. That's what I was
So
thinking.
at any rate, I'm back now. So I apologize for that. I completely missed the full Mod Academy. So I'm hoping that you're going to get that up as a separate
I will.
thing that I
Yep.
can go back and
Absolutely.
watch.
And it's well worth it. No pun intended. Get it?
Well
Well worth it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't
'cause
wait to do
I've-
these.
Yeah, I dabbled a little bit in the elemental wells, but only when they first came out, just as like, what's this? And can we? But haven't really.
I've done Elemental
done much
Charge,
with
but I
it.
haven't done much with the wells yet. I'm gonna try some of these
I
things.
just
out.
need them to give me a quest that's like slot an elemental well mod into each of your armor. Like I need someone to hold my hand and tell me to do it.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. It's kind of like the way it's like, even though I kept hearing how wonderful and how Warmind cells are amazing, even through Stego's segment on Warmind cells, it's like a part of me is just like can't wrap my head around adding that one other layer too. I sometimes just want to get on and play and not have to worry about like spending 15 or 20 minutes.
Boo hoo. When I was a kid, we didn't have video games. Anyway, are we ready for our
everyone
next
can use-
segment?
Right, everyone can just play the way they want to play. Those things are there, but they're not like, and that's what's nice about it is that they're there if you want to use them and dabble with them and you like that element of the game, but they're not necessary.
No, I need a consequence for not
gameplay.
using them.
Right. If they were like, say, it's like you absolutely cannot finish this end activity unless
Yeah, I guess
you
Grandmaster
use...
is the consequence for not using them.
Yeah.
Right,
Yep.
but I mean, I've
You're
done
shut out.
Grandmaster and not, I mean, obviously being, carried and so forth, but I think I've done some some relatively higher end activities where I didn't use them. So, I feel like,
did you feel the consequences?
No, but that's because I was getting carried. So, I mean, not necessarily with the, I don't think I've tried a master lost sector. I've done a legendary lost sector. I don't know if I've done a master lost sector yet.
All right. Moving right along.
Moving right along.
All right. The Paracasual Destiny podcast presents A Touch of Grimoire with Sally Bug. Sally Bug, do you want to talk to us about some lore?
Yeah, today we're going to talk a little bit about that friendly Harpy that is in the override mission.
Friendly Harpy!
It was in it started last week and then this week. And there is a theory floating around that's probably pretty solid. I'm going to say it's a pretty solid theory. And the theory is that this Harpy is either Asher himself, or he has somehow been able to manipulate a Harpy to be present to the Guardians and talk to them in some way. In terms of like which one of those that is, I mean, I think that's kind of we'll yet to see, but there's a few reasons why people think that. One is, first of all, it's a friendly Harpy, right? It's a Harpy that's not attacking us. Friendly. If you go to the area where that Harpy is, and that's in the override mission, if you're facing away from the Elixni encampment, it's on the, like in the buildings off to the right. And the setup that's over there is very similar to the setup that Asher Had on Io. Mm-hmm. And then the last clue, or at least the last one that I'm aware of, it is that the Harpy either beeps or blinks, I'm not sure which one, in Morse code, and when you translate that Morse code, it says assistant, and that is how Asher addressed us whenever he spoke to us. He didn't call us guardian, he called us assistant. There actually is another, I forgot about this one. There's another piece of evidence, and that is, and we went over the lore and the stochastic variable a few episodes back, where Lakshmi was going through all the different possibilities of the future, of what was going to happen. And in two of those future possibilities, Asher speaks is part of that future. And if you go to that one, and I don't I happen to have that that lore opened in front of me right now, but if you go to it, the other things that happen are like the Mithrax is getting surrounded, and Saint 14 is in there as well. I should have that open for me, but I don't. But at any rate, one of those possibilities is very close to what actually did happen in this last override and in the epilogue. So, that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about Asher, and so I wanted Green Stego to read the last piece of lore that we got that starred Asher, so to speak. Take it away, Stego.
From the book Duress and Egress, from Season of Arrivals. Asher, Conclusion. As Asher Mir watched his assistant's ship tear into orbit for the last time, it occurred to him that he had not expressed how truly satisfactory he had found some of their work. He briefly entertained the thought of leaving a letter, but there were others more deserving of his thoughts, and if he worked in descending priority, he might never make it to his assistant, which would defeat the purpose of the exercise completely. Instead, he went to the Pyramidion. The Vex are not born, yet not created. Desire to understand this conundrum brought Asher to Aya. He reasoned that the pyramid, with its alien resources and unknowable power, had likely come for the same purpose. The dark ship sought to take the secrets of the Vex for itself. But Asher Mir had already staked his claim, and he was prepared to defend it. He soon stood at the gate of the Pyramidion. The Vex security responded as he knew they would, and he was prepared. He piled their broken corpses on the plates and continued inside. He destroyed the first 100 Vex, then the second. A Minotaur roared into being before him, and he crushed its radiolarian core in his metal fist. He climbed forward over their clawing limbs. He slipped in the cooling rue of their dead fluid. Asher swallowed a mouthful of blood and kept moving. He paused by a whirling gate and watched the aperiodic waves, then stepped through at the only possible moment. He walked steadily through laser grids that seemed to bend around him. He hung calmly in a gravitational tourbillon as the ground beneath him flickered and shifted madly, and the Vex began to observe. The corridors of the Pyramidion were lined with glowing red eyes. The metal mannequin stood dumbly, twitching, shuddering as Asher passed. A familiar area unfolded before him. A cubist sinkhole reeking with the flat base stench of slate, mud, and bleach. He looked where the sky should be and found another impossible shape. Another fractal contradiction. Far above him, placid in its Penrose vortex, the vast radiolarian lake lapped gently at the metallic shores. The man reached up to the lake with his metal arm. He then reached with his arm of flesh. He reached with both, and he brought the lake down.
So that is our last kind of like knowledge of what happened with Asher Mir. So it looks like, I mean, honestly, don't really have like my full head around this piece of lore, except that he definitely has an ability to be present amongst the Vex without being attacked, at least to a certain extent, and as well as manipulate their constructs. So whether he's able to do some time traveling or get through some, like maybe he came through that Vex gate that Lakshmi opened up, because he was able to kind of observe it from the Vex side. That's a possibility. But definitely looks like, you know, being amongst the Vex, he was able to figure out a way to survive the impending pyramid invasion of his planet. We don't really know exactly, just the darkness kind of consumed them, but we don't know if they're necessarily destroyed, right? We just know that the darkness has kind of overcome them. I think Bungie has basically opened that up to be able to revisit those spaces again sometime in the future. But we've got a we've got a showcase coming up soon, so hopefully you get a little bit of a glimpse into the future of what's going to happen. And I haven't seen or heard any spoilers, which has been amazing, regarding the next season. Has anyone else?
No, but something that you did mention just a second ago kind of made me think of something.
Okay, let's hear it.
The planets are no longer in the directory, and we're being told that these planets just like went dark or whatever, right? Isn't
Right.
the person who went out and confirmed that Osiris? Like, Osiris went out and he came back and he was like, yeah, those planets are inaccessible. They're just gone.
Yes, but not inaccessible, but not gone. Or just have no way of being able to access them. But they don't know what exactly happened to them.
But also, Osiris is suspect now. So, like, can we even trust that?
You don't think Kyle double-checked?
I think that Osiris wasn't suspect at the time. I think Osiris is he's suspect because my personal belief with Osiris being suspect is that Savathun has overtaken him. So that she's either has him hidden somewhere, or she's outright killed him, which I doubt, because I think Savathun wants something from us, and I don't think she's going to get any. She's savvy enough to know that we're not going to do anything for her if we just kill one of our own, right? If she just kills one of our own.
Savathun.
Savvy Savathun. So my thought is that Savathun, because if you think back to one of the grimoires, I think it's in that same it's in the same book. Well, in the most recent book about the darkness. The endless night, and how she kind of disguises herself as a human. And I'm wondering if she's disguised herself as Osiris, but needs to have like Osiris present to be able to kind of manifest as him. I don't know. That's my thought anyway.
That tracks with the descriptions of her body physically coming apart at the seams.
Right.
In that one lore entry. But I agree that there's something going on with Osiris and possibly possession. Maybe some kind of taken technology.
Yeah.
Korea could take.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's either I think it's possession. It's either possession, or as Savathun is has been shown to do before, just possess. Get in the heads of others using her.
But she
her
can
song.
she can also shapeshift, right? She can kind of.
Well, yeah, that's what we were talking about. Is how she
can
kind of,
but not easily.
Not easily, but she can do it.
Right. So I'm wondering if she shapeshifted as Osiris, and how, like, I honestly. So maybe it's not actually Osiris.
It's not really his face. It's like the face of a woman in the cutscene.
No, it's Osiris's face. We actually paused it because I was like, oh, is there something going on with his eyes? And there wasn't. So I don't know what you're talking about.
I think you go with your gut instinct. Either you paused it for a reason.
There's nothing going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a...
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
Yeah, we don't know. All we know is that Osiris
after
has
the
not
24th.
been acting really himself, and whether that's because he's under the influence of Savathun or he actually is Savathun, we don't know. There's evidence that speaks for both of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll learn more in on the showcase.
Showcase next season.
Yeah,
Certainly-
either in the showcase or, I mean,
or
certainly
in Mylan's
we're
next
gonna.
video.
Right. Yeah. Certainly. Right. Or certainly gonna hopefully find something out in the next season. Be interesting to see what's going to happen.
All right.
Where they're going to take it, because it's going to be a long season, from what I understand, an extended season.
6 weeks.
6 weeks. That's not very long.
16
Like 6
weeks.
months. I think it's going to be a 6 month
months.
season.
I think people are getting too hung up on the season thing.
Yeah.
Point is,
Well, we'll see.
info is
It could
coming.
either be one long season or 2 short seasons.
Yeah.
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 That's about the time frame.
But
until
it
Witch
really,
Queen.
but yeah, we don't even
Yeah,
have a
we
date
don't-
for Witch
we
Queen
don't
right
know
now.
yet. I'm just going
Right.
to go with the flow. That's what I've decided to do. Go with the flow.
That's all you can do.
Yeah. We ready for our next segment?
We are.
All right. Let's move on to our next segment.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Destiny sound check.
It's time for the Destiny sound check. And in keeping with current events, I looked up and researched the Last City Override music. And if you've played the Override in the Last City since it was released, you might have noticed some familiarity with some of the themes musically going on. In fact, the crew over at Bungie have been doing this a lot. They're recycling not just themes, but actual tracks from previous compositions, which, if you think about it, it's kind of like reskinning Guns, but in the audio realm. But I think the implications are a lot different, and I think it's actually really good and maintains sort of the themes and keeps you in the universe. And it's done in a very, very subtle way, and the remixes are usually, I mean, the music's complex enough to where you hear things that you didn't hear before. And this is a perfect example. At one point when you're doing the override, there is a percussion track that comes from, that they lifted from the Insurrection Prime fight in Scourge of the Past, the Scourge of the Past raid. And it's Phase 1. I chose this part. Phase 1 from, and this comes from Promethean, who's great at giving us a lot of the music from Destiny. And so this first, I'd first like to play the original. Kell's Fury is the title, and it's the Phase 1 from the Insurrection Prime fight. So let's give that a listen first. Okay, so that was a minute of Kell's Fury, which was used the background music for Phase 1 of the Insurrection Prime boss fight in the Scourge of the Past raid. So for the Last City Override, we hear that song again, except it's just the percussion. And this comes from, and I'm going to butcher his name, Lorcanok, or Lorcan 0C, who also is a great contributor to original Destiny soundtrack. It's got to be painstaking to try and get this without anything else, and the editing and everything. Playing the game just to get the music is probably pretty tough, especially when in a activity like Override, where you have a lot of people running around with swords just moving it very quickly. And so I've got to believe this is a labor of love to get these tracks. Here's Kell's Fury, just the percussion, very effective for use in the Last City Override. We're going to listen to all 2 minutes and 25 seconds of this one. It is so good. You've been listening to Kell's Fury, the percussion track as used in the Last City Override mission. So you can hear how different just using the percussion track is from the original Kell's Fury Insurrection Prime Phase 1 fight track. It feels like it's a nice blend of a nod to the environment and the space where you're doing the override, because that's where you fought Insurrection Prime. But it also sounds very Vexy to me, and I don't know if my ears aren't good enough to tell whether they added some of those weird percussive metallic sounding Vex weirdness to it or not, but it fits so well. And I was playing that override yesterday, and that came on, and I thought how effective that was. Once again, a shout out to Promethean and Lorcanok, or Lorcan 0C, for providing these tracks. I will link to their channels, their YouTube channels, in the description of this podcast. So, did anybody get a chance to listen to those? I put the links to them in our show notes.
You played some of it to me, or pointed it out to me while we were playing, one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would not have been able to recognize that the two of them were from the same piece at all. So
They do a
good
lot
on
of
them
this.
for figuring that out.
They will do a lot of that.
Recycling other
and remixing and sampling
Right.
themselves all the time. Like they'll just put in just a taste of a Cabal theme in a certain situation, and it's always intentional and it's always really well done, I think. Again, kudos to the composers over at Bungie. What a team they have. What a talented group of musicians and composers. We are coming to the end of this episode now. We are at our last section, which we like to refer to as the non-Destiny media section.
Non-Destiny media consumption.
Non-Destiny media consumption, that is. And so what have we been consuming outside of the wonderful world of Destiny? Anybody?
Well,
it's
I'll go
been
first.
So long.
It's been a long time. There's been so much,
Yeah.
right?
I can't remember
Really
what I
has.
said last time.
Yeah.
Since our last pod,
Which was
I
like a
have
year
begun,
ago.
It's been a minute,
Yeah.
but a game called Pokemon Unite has launched, and so I have
It's a MOBA.
it's a MOBA like League of Legends or Dota.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
But with Pokemon.
Oh, cool.
it's a lot of fun. I'm having a
Yeah.
lot of fun with it.
Yeah, that seems like it would be a lot of fun.
I started playing Genshin Impact
What
on my
ki-
computer.
what- is that like a fighter or RPG?
Genshin Impact. Yeah, it's like it's a RPG, right? It's like open world RPG. It's very there's a lot of similarities to Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
But it's also you can get multiple heroes, and it's a bit of a gotcha game as well.
Mhm.
So I haven't spent. It's also free to play. I haven't spent any money on it yet.
Nice.
But it's been really fun. Yeah, just something a little different.
Yeah, PC. You've abandoned, but you guys
It's my
definitely.
first. Yeah, we got a nicer laptop, so I thought I'd give it a shot.
Oh, nice. Take it for a spin. Nice. Cool. Sally Bug, have you been indulging in any media outside of Destiny?
Oh gosh, since the last time we were on, you and I binge watched Mayor of Easttown on HBO Max.
Gosh. Yeah, we just watched that one straight through, didn't we?
We did, based on the recommendation from our clanmate and son.
Take the money.
Take the money and run. Also known as Funny Bone,
AKA.
AKA.
Yeah, it was a good recommendation.
And it was a good recommendation.
Kind of dark. I'd say it
Yeah,
was like
it's like one of those
Fargo-esque, but great performances. I would say
Yeah,
great
very-
acting performances
Right.
in that one.
Yeah. So, and we also played Omno all the way through.
That was fun.
Oh yeah.
That was so fun. It was so good. What a great, such a just to get kind of stray from the whole Destiny world and the fighting and killing other things to going into these beautiful landscapes and solving puzzles. And
yeah, it's got a great aesthetic to it. It's very indie, but very clean and robust and simple and fun.
I mean, some of
relaxing too. Great soundtrack.
Yeah, some of those puzzles are kind of difficult. I mean, they're just challenging enough to kind of keep you on your toes, but definitely not any fighting or anything. So it was nice to kind of take a break from all of that and just kind of relax with that. Reminded us a lot of Ori and the Blind Forest, just not as kind of detailed.
Not as hardcore.
Yeah, not as hardcore, but still had that same
beauty to it. Yeah.
Right. I'm
on Game Pass?
It's on Game Pass.
It's on Game Pass.
Yeah.
Go
and
out
you said it's a single guy, right?
Yeah, single developer. One
single
guy
developer
did it. Yeah.
Wow.
So
pretty impressive.
Yeah. So very when you take that into consideration with what it is, it's
and it's not long.
Amazing.
It's not particularly long. I think if you buy it, it's only like $18 or something. So it's not a long game, but it's just fun. All right. I think that does it. I think it's a wrap for episode 38. What do you think?
Yeah, let's wrap
Let's wrap this thing up. We are the Paracasual Destiny broadcast live on YouTube every other Saturday at 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. You can listen to the podcast anytime on the platform of your choice. So whether you're on Spotify, Apple, whatever that's called, iTunes, I don't know what they call it nowadays. You know, all those podcast outlets it goes out to. So also, if you are inclined, you can follow us on Twitter at ParacasualP on Twitter, or just look up Paracasual Destiny Podcast. You'll find us. Anyway, I think that wraps it. Thank you for tuning in, and certainly get in touch with us. Say hi. And until our next broadcast, we'll see you Starside.
Later, Guardians.
Bye.
Well, we weren't doing that. That wasn't going live or anything, so.